Welcome to Chinwag Tuesdays, your passport to a world of language and culture.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Chinwag Tuesdays. I'm Amanda and today's special guest is Anish, a civil engineer from Chandigarh, India, where I'm living, but he now lives in Adelaide. So we've done a bit of a switch here.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me today, Anish.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks a lot for having me and looking forward to such a great session with you today. Yep.
Me too. Cool. Well, how about we just get started with a bit of a self-introduction. Tell us more about your journey from Chandigarh to Australia and what inspired you to pursue a career in civil engineering there.
It all started from getting into civil engineering, and why I got into it the first place is the thing which really inspired me is my dad, because my dad has been civil engineer and had served 35 years of his life in public service in the state of Haryana in India. And seeing his passion towards what he has done and achieved in that time just got reflected in building our own house, which happened 20 years back. And during building of our own house, I used to accompany my mom and my dad, and we used to water the walls. We used to see whether the contractors have done a good job or not. So I really like that supervision part of building a house. I'm like, wow, that's so good. Just checking everything is fine, like being a police. And that just started getting the thick of things. But it was very initial. Like I probably was in sixth or seventh grade. And it was too early to even think about getting into any sort of particular field. But after when I completed my class 10th, then now living in India, you must be aware how things work here. So sometimes you don't have to had that idea what you will be pursuing in your career or what you will be becoming. So like others, I just happened to take what my brother did. So my brother, he's my elder brother, and I just used to follow his footpath of his footsteps. And that was just because he did engineering. So I'm like, I don't know what else to do. So I'm like, okay, I'll just give it a shot and we'll see, figure out it later. And but at that time, it was not being forced to me at all. Even if I would have taken, some other decision, I would have gone into that. But it's just I wasn't aware of any other option because that's the only thing I just saw.
Yeah.
I saw my dad, I saw my brother,
Well,
I saw
lucky
my
you
mom.
like it.
That's it. And I liked it. That's it. And yeah, so from there, I got into my 11th, 12th grade, and then I got into engineering. But the interesting between that was I took a year gap, which was not happening to every student, and every person was not in a position to take that as well. Maybe it's due to financial reason, or maybe it's just their own family circumstances. But for me, it was like, I will see, because while I was preparing for my 12th grade, I didn't score that well. And that just made me thought that if I now, so in that gap year, I happened to study for competitive exams to get into some universities, which are really prestigious universities like IITs and all, which are known for, those engineerings. So I happened to give their exams and discovered that I am really pathetic in studying that sort of competitive exam. It's not at all for
Love
me.
the honesty.
It's not at all. I'm not anywhere near to that. The way, the things, the ethic which needs to be there to crack that exam. And I was not even stressed about it at all. The funny thing was that my exams were there and I was not stressed because I already knew the result. I'm like, why to stress when I already know? So what I did is I started researching a bit about other universities which aligns with my thought process. And by, stroke of luck, I happened to apply to this beautiful university which is in South India. The name is Manipal University, and it was also my brother's decision. So I would definitely give him a lot of credit. And obviously, my family who supported me to send me 3,000 kilometers from my house when I was 18 years old. And you can understand living in India, how hard it is for an Indian mother to send his own child. Just imagine.
Yes.
And I was the smaller one, which is always a
Oh,
pampered one.
yeah.
So, yes,
True.
I think within 2 days, we made this decision to move to South India. And my
Wow.
father came with me because it was going out for the first time. Amanda, I'm not kidding. I was having a level of that confidence that I didn't even know how to use a ATM card. And yeah, imagine it happened because why I am bringing this is because it also is connected to my confidence and how I have moved to that ladder to where I am today. And what happened is,
Yeah.
after 3 or 4 months, when I was almost about to finish that semester, my father gave me a call, and he's like, and because whenever I had to withdraw any amount from the ATM, the notification will used to go to my dad's mobile and
Oh, it was on his
his
number.
number. So he's like, Anish, I haven't got any message from last 3 months. How is it possible that with that little money you have been able to survive? What is being done? What's happening? Like, he was really curious. And I'm like, that the thing is, I don't know how to use ATM. And once it's a true story. When I was the first time after 2 months, when I tried to learn how to use ATM, I was in a queue and I was seeing every person
Oh,
in front of me how they are using very dedicatedly. But I didn't had that sort of even confidence that I should ask a person and he or she can help me. No, I was shy like anything. And I'm like, no, I'll just see. I won't do ask anything about them, about the process. And the moment my turn came, I was started sweating. I'm not kidding. Started sweating and I just left
oh my
that place
gosh.
because all the queue was watching me and I became so stressed. I'm like, no, this is
Oh, the
not happening.
pressure.
I'm
Yeah.
going.
And they stand so close behind you, don't they?
Exactly.
They're like breathing down your neck,
Exactly. And
waiting for
everyone is
you.
seeing
Yeah.
how much money is. I'm like, because dad told me that you never have to share your pin. So I'm like, I need to make it secretive. I need to manage my own stress. I need to wipe out my sweat. What should I do? I'm like, no, this is not happening. I'm leaving. So this became the
Yeah.
reason. And then dad is like, whenever you will come back, I'll let you know how to use that. Or you can just ask your friend. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm too scared because everyone knows how to do this simple thing. And it's just too stupid to ask.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. At
Oh,
that time,
yes. Oh, I didn't even think of that.
yeah, and I'm like, I don't know. So that level of confidence was there in Manipal, and I progressed to that level that I started doing solo trips all across India by myself
Amazing. Yeah.
without having any fear. I traveled across Himalayas. I started. Uh, so now, at that time, I had chosen civil engineering, and one guidance I think my brother gave in the start of engineering is that, Anish, never waste your time in between the semester, which are semester holidays, because we used to get 2 months, three
Yeah.
months. At that
Yeah.
time, I'm like, I don't know what I should be doing because people in India used to love coding like anything. They are learning language, coding. And I'm like, coding is the
Yeah.
last thing I would even want to see at that time, please. And then I figured out there is a thing called internships. And I'm like, okay,
Okay.
in this sort of thing, you go there, you meet, you work with the real people where you will be working in future,
Yeah.
and you just happen to have a chance just to see how the things works. Even if you don't get to do the real
Yeah.
work by yourself, you're at least getting that exposure, getting that work ethic which you need to have when you are
Yeah.
expected to have some things when you're a civil engineer. It's not like you just
Yeah.
happen to see a civil drawing or construction drawing and you start taking pictures and you can share it on social media. No. So that's very sort of confidential thing. So
Yeah.
I didn't learn any great things or making houses or making anything. I didn't learn anything about
Mm.
civil, but I learned the most important thing, which is work ethic. And thanks to my brother for
Yes.
giving me that wisdom
Yeah.
at that time, which I didn't know that, okay, it might
Yeah.
turn out to be a really great asset for me. So yeah, it's just, it
Yeah.
happened from then. At that time itself, I saw the importance of LinkedIn. So I started using LinkedIn back in 2012, in the last month of
Wow.
2012. Yes. And I have
Yeah.
never stopped since then. I never posted, but I used to follow people. I used to go through profiles, how people are refining their careers, because some people were really
Mm.
expressive. They used to write what things
Yeah.
have been done. So that aspect never made me to have stress when I was making my resume in my final semester, because I already
Mm.
know how to make a
Yeah.
resume, what things I need to put, what are the terminologies, how to represent it to the employer. I never had any issues, and people
Yeah.
with me, especially my peers, used to struggle for content, putting out content. And I'm like, man, I have so
Yeah.
much content. I'm just not able to decide what should I put. So it's just my struggles were completely different with my peers, but
Yeah.
I learned from my peers as well. So it's not like I was
Yeah.
born with that. No, it's just I was curious, and that curiosity
Yeah.
took me places. I don't even
For
imagine
sure.
now. If you remember, there's a tunnel in Himachal Pradesh, which happens to be world's longest road tunnel,
Rotang Pass?
Atal Tunnel. Yes, in Rohtang Pass. So
Oh, the Atal Tunnel.
Atal
Yes, yes,
Tunnel,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
Yeah.
I happen to,
It's a bit scary.
yeah, I happen to did 2 months of internship in Atal Tunnel.
Did you? Oh, that's
Yes,
awesome. That's
yes,
a great tunnel.
and that was my first self-sourced internship. Nobody helped me. Only LinkedIn came to my
Amazing.
rescue, and since then,
Yeah.
at that first time, I contacted a chief brigadier who is a part of Indian Army but belongs to an organization named Border
Yeah.
Road Organization. So I happened to just
Okay.
give him a call in the Delhi headquarters. I just random, no plans, nothing, because it was just that drive that I have to
Yeah.
work there. I have to be there as a civil engineer. What's the point of doing this
Yeah.
if I don't get to see the tunnel building? And mark my words,
Yeah.
that's not a conventional process the way they worked. People, the engineers
Sure.
himself, they themselves used to say that this, if this tunnel gets built, that will be a miracle for India. And it
Yeah.
is for the people of,
Yeah.
Himachal, whom I had,
Yeah. Sure.
respect a lot, because when I had backpacked extensively in Himachal, and the people are really fabulous over there, the warmth they offer, and
Yeah.
the easiness which they have got by building up of this tunnel. So it was
Yeah.
just amazing, and it just strengthened my belief to just keep on stick to what I'm doing good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where I'll end up, but there was just this sort of confidence in me after this internship that
Yeah.
I will do something. I don't know what I'll do. So yeah, that was it. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that was
Oh
my
gosh,
Indian
that's
journey.
incredible.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and then I progressed through ladder, and then I happened to work with federal government of India, which was Ministry of Road Transport
Yep.
and Highways. That was a really good experience, which also happened through networking.
Yeah.
One of my
Yep.
father's contact knew someone, and then I happened to be there at right place and right time. So things
Amazing.
just
Yeah.
connected. So I wouldn't say that all all the effort was done by my dad. No, it was just also my interest and the way I represented
For
myself.
sure.
I conducted myself, which
Yeah.
they absorbed me there, and then uh,
Yeah.
thanks to my interest and curiosity that allowed me to attach to one place, I left
Yeah.
that job, because you are in India. You must be understanding, if a person gets a government job, then what would be the next step in his life?
Yes.
Nothing.
Because that's the dream. That's the dream for so many people, isn't it? Like
Exactly.
one of the differences with, like, let's say Australia
Yeah.
as a country and India with government jobs
Yeah.
is that in India, you have to sit government exams to get a government job.
Exactly.
Whereas in Australia, I
No,
worked for government. I worked for an government insurance company, and I just got that from applying through Seek.
exactly. I mean, I couldn't able to digest this fact when I come to Australia, and I got to know this very fact which you just mentioned, that
Yes,
it's not about your identity being attached to that job.
true.
A lot of good people whom I have came in contact in Adelaide, they also have told me about creating an alternative identity of yourself, so that once if you happen to lose your job, then you are not just attached to that particular thing. And that was just
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. And that's being even lived by all Australians in general. I've seen
Yeah.
they don't, in general, stress about being at one place. If they don't like it, they don't have to do it. That's it.
Yeah.
Easy as done. That's it.
Exactly. They look for a new job. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's a process.
That's the beauty of Australia.
Exactly. And I love it. I just appreciate that aspect, which is there. It's just in the air. When I
Yeah.
tell this aspect to my
Yeah.
friends back in India, they cannot understand, even if I want to, because they just have
Yeah.
to experience this while they work in Australia by themselves. It's a feeling. It's
Yeah.
a feeling.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
and just after this, things started aligning for sure. When COVID hit, nobody could do anything. And it was just, I was
Yeah.
at my house doing absolutely nothing. But that didn't stop me from pursuing online courses. So I'm like, what can I learn at the moment? I don't, it's maybe it's nothing have to do with civil engineering. I'll do completely different. So
Yeah.
now the interesting bit starts. I happen to do a normal, food courses, learning about nutritional content in the food which we are eating. And there was this beautiful course by Stanford University. I happened to do that. And before COVID itself, I had these plans of pursuing masters, and Australia was never in my option. New Zealand was my preference.
Yeah.
I already had got
Okay.
an offer from New Zealand before COVID, and I was just waiting for New Zealand to get open, which I think they never opened till even till the end of 2022.
They were one of the last countries, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were really one of the last countries to open up.
Exactly. And I was just because they were not opening, and I was thinking how pure that country would have been by just saving themselves from the whole infection, and how they are and how they are able to keep
Yeah.
flowing their economy. But yeah, I mean, we didn't had any choice. So after this food course, what I did is in 2015, back in Manipal, I happened to see a video because Himalayas have always been at my heart. Like I cannot just stress enough saying to people how much I'm in love with Himalayas, and that's why my whole backpacking has been around Himalayas. I happened to see a video which was about remote Himalayan village in Ladakh, which is a northernmost district. And what I saw was in that video that the small children, like in grade 1, 2, they had to travel, they had to trek 100 kilometers in fully
I
snowed.
think I've seen this kind of video.
Yes.
My in-laws love watching this kind of stuff.
Exactly. And fully snow covered peaks with having a fear of being attacked by snow leopards. They used to just travel that path for 7 days and go to their school.
Yes. And it's like really tiny roads too,
Yeah.
so there's the danger of
There are
slipping
no
off the
roads.
mountainside.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Amanda. I'll correct
Yeah.
you there. And those are not roads. Those are just paths being ridden again and again by
Pathways.
people. That's it. There are no roads.
Yes,
So,
okay, pathways, let's call them.
pathways, exactly. Just a bushland, I would say. When I saw that, and when they reached to those schools, there were no teachers over there, because teachers who had to come from mainland, like from the plain areas, they were so scared that they avoided going to school. So students have reached to the school, but there are no teachers, and that just
Oh my
I couldn't able to
gosh.
understand why is it happening. So my whole idea of telling this thing about video is this thing inspired me to have an idea that What if the students doesn't have to travel that path? What if the teacher themselves go there? So I happened to connect with one of the volunteer organizations over there who just started a school in Ladakh.
Yeah.
And it was just like right place and right time and the exact moment, I would say. I happened to give that lady a call. I just got her number, who was the principal of the school. And I just
Yeah.
saw, read about her and the school, how she started everything on a blog. And that blog was so crisp.
Yeah.
He mentioned every detail in that. And I got a number and I just called that. Hi, I got your number from this so and so this. And then on that same call, she happened to take my interview for a teaching position for mathematics and geography. Imagine, imagine. And I'm like, is it serious? Because I have time. I'm like, I'm free. Like, you
Yeah.
can take me for 5 months, 6 months, any year. I don't care
Yeah.
because nothing can be done at the moment. And when you're doing volunteering, it's for
Yeah.
free. So you don't have to spend anything. And
Yeah.
what else would be the best thing to do during that time when everything was closed? But a good thing about Himalayas
Yeah.
was you can roam around. It was just there was
True.
lockdown, but no lockdown for those people because you cannot put a lockdown in mountains. People can travel. There's no fear of
Yeah.
any infection, so it was
True.
good. And
Yeah.
within 1 month, Amanda, I was there. I was there in the Himalayas with my first
My
love
God.
and just sipping the famous Ladakhi tea, thinking about how it
Yeah.
has happened. How? Like I wasn't
My
able to believe
gosh.
myself. And then it's just imagine, Amanda, I just told you in the start how much I hate mathematics. Sorry if I haven't mentioned it. I'll now mention it. I am a civil engineer, which requires mathematics, but I've hated mathematics like anything. And the
Yeah.
only subject I had a choice to teach there was mathematics. And I'm like, why? Like, in
Oh.
such a beautiful place, I have to teach maths. Imagine, which I really don't. I
Yeah.
had a choice, and I'm like, okay, let's go with that.
Yeah.
I happened to be there for almost 5 months, 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
There were times when there was no food, no supply was there because that region even lies beyond the highest motorable road in the world, which was Khardungla Pass,
Okay.
where usually you must have
Yeah.
seen a lot of bikers go for a road trip. So yeah, that was the
Yeah.
place. And that
Mm.
this village was even 100 kilometers away. So it was almost 300 kilometers from the
Wow.
capital itself. So that's just
Yeah.
insane. And I was right near to the border of Pakistan. So I could even see the bunkers of
Yeah.
Pakistan army. Everyone was there. Yeah. I
Wow.
actually happened to go in visit not inside, but saw the no man's land where not any sort of people are
Yeah.
allowed to go. And I was staying there. I
Yeah.
used to fill up my gas cylinder from there to cook and everything. So it was like a Himalayan life. And I just cannot,
Yeah.
you need to stop me because I will just go on talking about this thing on and on.
Yeah.
It was really good. I used my lockdown period
Yeah.
just in this way and brushed up my skills
Yeah.
to feel more confident. And in hindsight,
Yeah.
I knew that in India, volunteering is not being appreciated that much the way it will be
Yeah.
appreciated in Australia or New Zealand or any other country because it's the
True.
way people start their employment or before employment, they
Yeah.
don't give exams. They just happen to have practical experience using these things.
True.
And in a way, my preparation for Australia has started since that time itself. It was back in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
And then in 2022, just after the wedding of
Mm.
my brother, I decided to just take a bit 1 month gap and then just applied for July intake because at that time everything was opened in Adelaide, no lockdowns were there. So I'm like,
Sure.
that would be a perfect time to
Yeah.
go over there. And yeah,
True.
so
Yeah.
that's how my journey happened from Chandigarh to Adelaide.
My gosh, and everything in between. That's amazing.
Yeah, and
I
just
think it's so funny how you were saying that when you first moved to South, you didn't even know how to use an ATM card because
yeah,
I think one thing that you probably had an advantage of compared to, say, other Indian students who do move directly from India to, say,
yeah,
Australia, is that you had the experience of living away from home.
yeah.
Even though it was still in India, South India is still
Still
different with
different.
the language and the
Exactly.
culture.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas, a lot of Indians will go straight from their family
Yeah.
home to Australia and get to Australia, not even know how to wash their own clothes or cook their own food. Mostly
Absolutely.
boys.
Absolutely. I was even still,
Whereas you had that kind of advantage of doing those things already for yourself in
but
South
Amanda,
India.
I would say I had never washed my clothes. I had never ironed my clothes. I'd never made food for myself, even in Manipal, because our messes were having food
Yeah,
courts where we were catered with, food
true.
as well. So,
Yes, of
considering
course.
the domestic
You
side
had
of
those
things,
experiences when you got to Australia.
absolutely. I was the same like any other child. It's just
Yeah,
the distance which I already had the idea, how
yeah,
to live far away by myself. That was the only advantage I would
yeah.
say. But yeah, you're right. It was still there as an advantage. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So you've kind of, yeah, you grew up, well, you lived in Chandigarh and then you moved to South and you experienced remote parts of India in the Himalayas. So
Absolutely.
what would you say were some challenges that you faced when you first moved to Australia, both with studies and adjusting to life?
Really good question. It just takes me through my university life. And if I still remember my day one, so the aspect which I talked to you about networking, it has been, I just live and
Mm,
breathe networking because without it, I
yeah,
have been no one, to be honest. What I did is
yeah,
started doing networking even 2 months before I was there in Australia. I
great.
uh,
Yeah.
so through the agent which I used, there were a lot of other students who applied through same agent. So what I asked is, do you
Hmm.
have any other student in your mind who will be comfortable in sharing his number so that I can get in touch with him or her, s- just to
Mm,
know about how things works and just getting a reality check right here itself. And
yeah.
she happened to share that number, and he turns out to be from Chandigarh, and he turns out to be, imagine, he turns out to be living in the same accommodation where I was. And I was like, oh, nice.
No! Oh, what a
Imagine,
small
by just
world.
asking that simple question, can
Yeah.
you please share the details? I already had established one contact,
Yeah.
which is already there. And he
Yeah.
was there the
Yeah.
moment I reached there. He was there with me the moment I even brought some stuff for him, which he really wanted for himself. I brought with myself, and his father dropped some things at my house. And
Oh,
I established a bit
lovely.
of
Yeah.
connection there. I know. And when I landed in Adelaide, it was the coldest day recorded day in Adelaide. It was 5 degrees at that night, and I don't know what Antarctic winds are and how they feel. I just know that Indian winters, which are foggy, there's no wind, right? You know now, there's no wind.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what is this? The first thing, even I on the airport apron itself, the moment I stepped down from the ladder, I got aside and I'm like, I was finding my beanie. I cannot even walk till the terminal building. I need to have that. So I just took that, and that person whom I established contact, he was there. And the first thing I couldn't have even imagined is he took me to a food street, to an Indian restaurant the very first night just to make me comfortable with everything. And
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
and that's a different thing that he took me to through Hindley Street, where everything was, oh my goodness. I couldn't imagine that much of lights happening back in my hometown. It
Yeah.
was so different. Straight away seeing it on your first night, I was just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I had my
Yeah.
dinner
Yeah.
and just went back and started getting a hold of things with since then.
Yeah.
the challenges, the first challenge which came on was, I would say, with my university assignment, which was, I still remember, I cried like newborn one, and there there was not any chance anyone could have just specified me at that time. I was video
Yeah.
calling my brother and my sister-in-law, and they were just telling me, whatever you know, just write in the assignment. It's not like an Indian exam.
Yeah.
It's a culture of
Yeah.
assignments where you just need to show your knowledge in your own words. And
Yeah.
the challenge
Yeah. True.
is just not about expressing yourself. The challenge was about not having a single percent of plagiarism in that. This is very new to me.
Yeah.
Plagiarism, I didn't know what plagiarism is. And the culture of teaching in Australia and India, the difference is like in India, you are being taught each and every requirement of
Yes.
that aspect of that
Yes.
subject. In Australia,
There's not much room for critical thinking.
no, in
Yes.
Australia, not happening. Not happening. If you're not interested, you can leave the class. Not happening. The teacher won't even say a word. They're like, yeah, that's fine. In
Yeah.
India, if we have to go to toilet, we need to take permission. And I still remember.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I still remember the drill.
Oh, that stopped after you left primary
I s-
school in Australia. In high school, I mean, yeah.
I still remember the drill. I used to ask, "Ma'am, may I go to the toilet?" And I still remember two of those cringy teachers who didn't even allow me to go to toilet. And I'm like, how should I say that? I'm
Terrible.
feeling really uncomfortable. What are they expecting?
Yeah.
And so this aspect doesn't happen in Australia. You're free.
True.
You just want to
Yeah.
express whatever is happening in your mind. You cannot just
Yeah.
take those things, doing overthinking again and again in your mind and just sleeping with that heavy load. And I was doing it for 2 months,
Yeah.
for starting 2 months, because it was difficult
Yeah.
just to adapt immediately.
Yeah.
And no one can do. I mean,
Yeah.
if someone is able to do that, good on them. But as far as I know,
It's really
it's
tough.
really tough. And you, I think,
Yeah.
are also a perfect example because now you are in India. I would love to hear any example from you as well if you want to share any example just to relate
Yeah.
with that. Do you have any sort of memories?
Well, it's a bit different for me because I didn't study
Yeah.
in India and I've never actually had an Indian job. I wasn't allowed to work for a number of years because of my visa restrictions. And it wasn't until I got my OCI, my Overseas Citizens of India card, which acts like a permanent residency essentially,
Right.
that gave me my working rights.
Right.
And then I started my business. So I don't have any experience when it comes to Indian education or the Indian work
Right.
kind of culture. But honestly, it probably took me 3.5, 4 years
Wow.
to really feel settled here.
Wow.
I've been here over 5.5 years. So it's only been since I got my OCI and I started working and I got financially independent, something that was really, really, really hard for me.
Right.
Which you'll probably laugh because it's so normal here. But in Australia, you get your first part-time job at 15.
Yeah, exactly.
basically. So I started earning my own,
Yeah.
I started earning my own money at 15
Yeah.
and I was financially independent from that day. So as soon as my first job was working for my parents in their cafe, they had that for 12 years. And they said to me, you're working now. So from now on, anything you want, you pay for yourself. And that taught us independence.
Wow.
Whereas when I moved here with savings, but then we got married, we had household stuff to buy, COVID happened. My husband's business, he had liquor stores,
Right.
which were not essential services.
Right.
So they were shut down for like
Oh.
3 months during pandemic. So we used my savings.
Wow.
I wasn't allowed to work. So I ran out of money. I ran out of savings. We were like, it was a really tough time for us.
Wow. Wow.
So when
Yeah.
I ran out of my savings, I had to ask my husband for money. And I have never asked a man for money. Ever.
Especially living in
The
Australia.
last man I asked for money was, yes, the last time I asked a man for money was my father when I was 14 and I moved here at 29.
Wow.
So
Impressive.
I despised it. I hated it so much. And my husband couldn't understand why it was it bothered me so much because it's normal here.
Exactly.
Like the wife asks the husband for money. I'm like, I do not like it. I do
Right.
not like it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. It's just
So it wasn't until I started earning my own money that I became financially independent that I started to feel like, okay, I'm feeling comfortable here, because it made me that uncomfortable
Correct.
because I was not used to it. It was just, oh, I didn't like
Exactly,
it. And I still
exactly.
don't.
And imagine this is such a simple thing for us being in India. Don't even care
Yeah.
like where the money is coming from.
Yeah.
As long as it hasn't been
Yeah.
stolen or something like that, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just in the culture. That's it.
Exactly.
And when I came here,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
doing part-time. So, Amanda, interesting bit was when I was coming to Adelaide, I started doing networking with a lot of people already here. I met
Sure.
one
Yeah.
of the nicest person in my university itself who happened to did the same course as I did in which like
Okay.
3 years back. So he was already working in the
Yeah.
industry itself. So I already started having industry
Yeah.
insights. I was already started having
Yeah.
the how to approach towards the university assignments. So I was started gaining
Yeah.
that idea.
Good.
And during that last two
Yeah.
months, I always had this idea in my mind to work part time before I go to Australia,
Yeah.
because that is the Australian culture.
Yeah.
You cannot, even if you
Yes.
have money like Ambani's or the most richest persons in the world, you just
Yeah.
you won't be able to fulfill your mind and just sleep peacefully
Yeah.
just by doing nothing. It's
True.
not happens, just it's not in the culture, and it just not happens when you are just studying
Yeah.
and doing nothing. No, it's in the culture. So what I did is I chose a place which can allow me to work part time, and I did it in Australian style
Yeah.
just by simply walking and just asking them. And it happens to be in the
Amazing.
Decathlon store in Chandigarh. So you must have seen Decathlon.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that is
Yeah. The one at
Zirikpur.
Zirikpur.
Yes, exactly.
I actually live on the Zirikpur side of Chandigarh.
Oh, nice. So quite close to me as well.
Yeah, I live near there. Oh my
Oh,
God, that's so
yeah.
close.
I'm saying, oh, wow, that's good. Very small world, then I would
That's
say.
okay. That's actually insane.
Yeah. And I just went there and just met the sports leader who was responsible for the recruitment. And what can be a better
Yeah.
time when you are just there by yourself, having your own resume?
Yeah.
This was a sports company, so I thought there is not any much time reading my traditional resume and going through all the aspects. They
Yeah.
don't have time. They are just going on. They are in sales job.
No.
They just want to go quick
Yeah.
by within few seconds or something. So what I did is I
Yeah.
made a presentation PPT, very basic PPT, explaining my whole experience and my whole passion towards sports, which was running. So I was
Yeah.
quite much into running. I did some marathons and I was into swimming as
Yeah.
well. So I did bits and pieces of that. I was cycling in lockdown because that's the only thing I could have done once lockdown got
Yeah.
opened. And so I pasted all
Yeah.
those things and created a sort of small portfolio and took that.
Yeah.
And because interview happened just on that day itself, and they are like, okay, this guy will take your
Sure.
interview, and after that they'll let you know. And I happened to show them that presentation during that, and they just loved it, and they are like,
Yeah.
for sure, like you can just
Yeah.
start next week. I'm like, I don't have time in 2 months. I might have my own plans, so I just gave them
Yeah.
a sense of that bit of idea. So I'm like, I just want to start from tomorrow,
Yeah.
whenever it can do. So I
Yeah.
just happened day after I started there, and I start imagine how much I was earning there per hour, because they offer an hourly salary in part time.
What is it like what is it like 100 rupees an hour?
Oh my
Tell me.
goodness! Absolutely, $2.
Yeah.
So that was two
Yeah,
dollars an hour.
wild. You know what though? I am so impressed, Anish, because not a lot of people would let their ego down enough to work a retail job in India. And I only say that because in Australia it's very different. People don't care whether you work as a waitress in a hotel or retail job, but
Absolutely,
here, as you know,
absolutely.
there's different. I have to be careful with how I word this. There's just different parts of society based on those different roles.
Exactly.
So
chosen
Yeah, I think that's
amazing
really
word.
incredible.
You have just explained it so nicely. I can imagine what you're trying to say and where is it coming from. I would have chosen the same set of words.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. And yes,
Yeah. So, you know what? I am so impressed that you not only decided to do this to kind of have a part time job before you go away and build up those skills, but also, what did your parents say?
my
Because
parents
again,
didn't
that's
had
obviously something that,
when I chose to go to Ladakh to teach, my parents didn't had any idea. They're like, just
yeah,
be safe, just come home
yeah,
whenever you finish your work. They
yeah,
have absolutely 101% supportive at every time whenever I have presented an
amazing. I
idea.
love that.
And that's not it. When I
Yeah,
have presented an idea, I always used to do my background research. When I told them, I
sure.
explained them, this is the reason. Because just imagine earning, my father was working in a public service, and his colleagues would be the ones to whom I'll be selling. And they already know my salary.
Yes,
How embarrassing as a
yes,
normal person in India would have been when the people whom you know or even your relatives can visit that store because it's open.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm like,
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I'm like,
Like there's absolutely no shame in it. Definitely no shame in it. But it's just unfortunately it's just the thinking of society here. Society's got a really long way to go before thinking changes. And it's always about like, log kya kahenge, right?
exactly.
What will people
People
say?
used to say it on our face, Amanda. I remember one of my
Yeah.
teammate, she was just displaying them the clothes, and out of just, I don't know how that curiosity came to that customer. She was a beautiful lady, but this
Mm.
question came out of, "Aap kitna kamate ho?" Like, how much do you earn? How much you will be earning? 100,
Oh,
200.
shameless.
Yeah. She bluntly spoke that. 100, 200, 10,000 a month. What? And the way how
Disgusting.
people say in India sometimes making the face and looking it very expressive that we are just
Yeah.
trying to demean you. And
Yes. Yeah.
sadly,
The body language says it
this
all.
is a bit
Yeah.
of sad reality of our culture as well.
Yeah.
Not, I'm not saying we don't have any good. We have such an amazing culture in other aspect. We have so many
True.
good things. I love my own culture, to be honest. It's not to demean anyone at any stage. It's just my personal experience, which I experienced myself.
Yeah.
Being a salesperson in
Exactly.
India,
Your first-hand experiences.
being a salesperson in India is not easy. And at such a small level,
No.
I was having that intention
Yes.
that I had to leave. That also was one of the reason I was able to continue to do it for the long time. At some stage, I also
Yeah,
used to
true.
have those tears why I'm doing it or why even I have chosen to do it. I was questioning that next week itself. I'm like, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It was KPI based.
Yeah.
I was having KPIs. I had to
Oh,
do training. That in 2 months, I did one training of showing. So I was responsible for the
yeah.
mountain trekking team. So I was in the trekking part,
Sure.
which I love as well. And there was the good thing that I'm doing what I love. But it's just when it comes to
Yeah.
selling and showing customers, it's just different.
Mm.
You need to tell
Yeah.
everything about a product. You need to describe them.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just deepened every aspect of that shameness, I
Yeah.
would say, which helped me in settling down in Adelaide,
Yeah.
I would say. And that was just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. Oh, I'm so impressed. That's actually incredible. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, in terms of work culture, so obviously we've talked a bit about the sales culture, but if we just go back to, let's say, corporate culture, which is what you experienced in India for some time,
Yep.
how would you say the work culture in Australia differs to what you experienced in India? Sorry, Australia versus
So,
India.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I would start with from my company itself where I'm currently working. So I'm working in a civil construction firm who is responsible for building highways and doing bit of highway interchanges and building bridges, whatever comes in front of
Yeah.
the freeways and everything. So we also happens to work on that and constructing wetlands and everything. So that's the profile of my company.
Yeah.
And from the day one itself, when I started last year working here, I experienced the actual Australian spirit. So, according to me, and this
Yeah.
has been starting, I started visualizing and relating it from day one in Australia itself until today.
Mm.
Australian spirit lies in asking questions. If you are not
Yes.
able to ask questions, then the other person would
Yeah.
never be able to even predict or guess where are you standing,
Yeah.
where do you come from.
Yeah. And there's no shame in asking questions either. There's no
Absolutely.
wrong question most of the time.
Absolutely. And this is the difference now. Coming from Indian culture, Indian
Yeah.
work setting, I was working, I mean, when I was working in the government, I was working with India's finest minds, I would say. I was working with that person
Yeah.
who topped that exam which I was preparing for. And I haven't even scored
Right.
anywhere near.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate that he became my
Yeah.
boss. But the culture, which is absolutely, gives you that starking difference. If my boss in India used to explain something about, give a brief discussion about something, and if I chose to remain silent, just by,
Mm.
and if I'm just being silent, he's telling me and I'm not able to understand. So I'm choosing it by an Indian culture. I'm just choosing it to remain silent because if I say anything, then I have to say about what he has been explaining, but I'm not even able to
Mm.
get it. So I used to remain silent. So that silence
Yeah.
represents that silence is being perceived by my boss as that he hasn't understood. I maybe need to explain in some other way or maybe give a bit more
Mm.
practical idea about it. Unlike in Australia,
Mm.
if you do this, you choose to remain silent. He has explained for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes. If you don't say a word, it's being already taken, perceived by the speaker that you have understood it absolutely well. And no one can
True.
explain you better because now you know how to do the job. Imagine
Yeah.
I was shit scared, to be honest. Sorry about my words. I was really
It's
scared
okay.
how to again ask that question and
Yeah.
again. Last week, I
Yeah.
tried to break that, shyness of asking again, same questions again and again. I asked same question
Yeah.
5 times, Amanda. 5 times. And even that, my manager was, I can see the body language. He was like, what sort of civil engineer you are if you don't know this stuff? And in my mind, I was thinking, if I didn't ask it today, then I won't be able to sleep. So it's just today
Yeah.
by do or die. It's like a cricket match where you have just taken
Yeah.
the pledge. You will just win or lose. That's it.
Exactly.
And that just,
Yeah. And it's better to ask the questions instead of just assuming and then doing the wrong thing and then it lead to something worse.
absolutely. It's very simple, to be honest, Amanda. Coming from India, the way you just said, it's very hard. It's very hard to ask 5 times same question again and again. And there will
For
be
sure.
definitely
Yeah.
what made motivated me to ask it again and again is I said to myself,
Yeah.
Anish, there would be, I think, a lot of Indian people or maybe a lot of people from other nationalities who would have been facing the same thing. And if I will be able to break this whole shyness today, then at least I will be the one who can share this thing that there is no harm in just
Yeah.
asking it. No one will do anything to you. You won't lose your job. I used to think
Yeah.
during probation
Exactly.
that no, I cannot make any
Yeah.
mistake. It's just the moment I make mistake, they will just lay me off. That's it. That's how it works. That was, going in my mind. I was
Yeah.
living on the edge when I was in probation. It's just,
Yeah.
it was too stressful for me. I was giving so much pressure
Yeah.
on my mind, pressure,
Yeah.
performance fear, just fear of
Yeah.
the place from where I come from. what others would say, what log kya kahenge. That's
Yeah.
the famous line in India
Yeah.
is log kya kahenge. I don't know.
It is.
I have never.
And it's like in every language too. I've heard there's something similar in Punjabi. I forget the verb though. But basically it's the same thing, right? Log something. Log kiya something, because I don't know the verb in
Yeah,
Punjabi.
yeah,
But it's basically the same.
yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone has that slang in each language. So, yes, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, well, I suppose we say it in English. What will people say? What will they think? Yeah.
and
So
and
it's the
that's
thing.
so. I'm just thinking, how would an Australian would think about it? What would people say? Does Australian usually tend to think about it?
Sometimes, but they don't think little things as so trivial as working a retail job,
Yeah.
for example. It's more so if it's something really extreme that they think, oh my God. And it's not what people would think.
Yeah.
It's more about what will your family say?
Correct.
What would your family think? They make it very
Personal.
personal, but it's not, they don't think about randoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's what I think
Whereas
matters.
here, there's more pressure with society's, your image in society and how people will perceive not just you, but your family
Exactly.
as well. That's why I was curious about what your family had thought about you working
Absolutely.
at Decathlon,
Absolutely.
because no doubt they probably had relatives and work colleagues and the
Definitely.
outer community being like, oh, look at your son working at Decathlon,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah.
And I was honestly, I don't know, like my mom and dad, if I give them a clear explanation and express my thoughts,
Yeah.
they are pretty much happy with that. They are not,
Yeah,
because
that's
they
great.
themselves, and
Yeah.
it comes from them itself, because they left their homes, both of them, because we belong to
Yeah.
a place called Yamunanagar in Haryana. They are born and brought up, born and
Oh,
bred
yeah,
from
I've
that
heard of it,
place
yeah.
itself, and they chose to leave that place and come to Panchkula, which was near to Chandigarh, and which
Yeah,
was
right. Okay.
solely because of our
Yeah.
education, that we will get good schooling.
Yeah.
And Chandigarh is another
Yeah.
Adelaide, to be honest. The same vibe which I get.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
You do know that there is a history there, right? Do you know about this history?
Mm,
You probably would, being a civil engineer. Okay, well, let me explain
Yep.
it. The architect of Chandigarh, what's his name? Le Corbusier.
Le Corbusier, yeah, the French
his name?
architect. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, French architect. So he designed Chandigarh based off the blueprint of Adelaide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely
Yeah,
remember,
so
because
there is
the
similarities. I'm really glad that you've noticed
the
that.
town planning is the grid planning, which is architectural term
Yeah.
is grid. So that's the same grid are there in Adelaide, and the grids have been more
Yes.
elongated with roundabouts in Chandigarh. So that's the bit of
Yeah.
used
Yes.
designs which you just mentioned. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
sometimes feel fortunate. I'm like, wow, even I landed in a place which
Yeah.
a bit similar to India, and
Reminds you of home a little
yeah,
bit, right?
it's like whenever I visit back, it's just like Adelaide without rules. I would say Chandigarh.
Yeah.
I mean, not that strict.
Yeah,
Chandigarh
true.
is having its own set of rules.
Well, yeah, it depends where you go. Obviously, when you get into Chandigarh itself, the traffic police are a little stricter and the roads
Absolutely.
are stricter, but you can really notice. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can. Panchkula is a bit different, but you can tell when you enter Punjab
Panchkula is
roads.
my town. I would say it. I know each and every bit by just back of my mind. I know where are the speed cameras, and in which surprisingly they can put in new cars, which doesn't look like a normal one. So I'm very comfortable in Panchkula the
Yeah.
moment I enter, but when I'm in Chandigarh, I had to be cautious. Yeah.
My husband's the same, yeah, because so his parents are actually from Himachal. So his mum is from Manali and his
Wow.
dad is from Uttarakhand, Nainital area.
Wow.
Yeah. So they left Himachal, they got married, they came to Chandigarh. They're actually in their village is in Panchkula.
Right.
So that their village is that side.
All right.
So that's where my husband was born. And so he's been around this area. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere along the line you've crossed paths.
Yeah, definitely.
Even at Decathlon.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh, wow. I happened to
Yeah,
stay in
so-
Manali for
so
3
he's-
months. So that's a lovely place.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. It's just good.
So yeah, he's been around this area his whole life. I've been living in this same area too since the whole time I've been here.
Yeah.
So I'm really comfortable around this whole area.
Yeah.
Like
That's the
places
first
that I go.
from
Yes.
that area. Nice.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Nice. So you're so close.
All right.
Wow.
Well, last question before we finish up.
Sorry. Yes.
I know.
Yep.
Yes. So, what I would love to know, And I think this is something that people watching, if they are planning to move to Australia or they might already be on their way to Australia,
Correct.
looking back, what are some things that you wish you knew before moving to Australia that could have made your transition smoother?
So
Cool.
I would say, and this is very common, and until last week and the today is one of the special day for me, and it happens to be Australia Day as well. And it's like I have found my belongingness in Adelaide, and why I'm
Yeah.
trying to bring
That's
this,
so important.
why I'm trying to bring this particular trait is that once you move to a new country, then you will be experiencing new things from different cultures, and especially places like, especially in Australia, you will find so many cultures which are have been residing for so long. Even if they have become Australian citizens, they still carry that culture from their original country, which is very important, I would say, Amanda, which is very important for every person who is trying to move from India. Consider it like your own original identity. Don't try to be someone else in pursuit of becoming an Australian, because honestly, you will never become an Australian. Australian is not, there is, we shouldn't be confusing our pursuit of becoming, adapting to a new culture with becoming an Australian citizen. These are completely two different aspects. When you come to a new country, you're seeing their culture, you're trying to adapt, you're trying to indulge yourself so quickly that you're not realizing that you happen to say yes to those things which are not part of your culture, and you sometimes end up repenting on doing those things, that, oh shit, why should I have done that, I shouldn't have done that. But because you add to that just to satisfy yourself, you say that to yourself, but this is important. Why? Because I'm in Australia, I have to adapt to it. No, you don't have to be honest, you
Yeah.
don't have to. You
Yeah.
don't have to become a non-vegetarian if you are a pure vegetarian back in India. There are stores, there are
Yeah.
all this stuff which is available here. I have seen, I have experienced myself, I did myself to myself that I became a non-vegetarian for a bit of time, thinking of it saves time in cooking and everything. No, it's just, it was in my head.
Yeah.
So I just urge
Yeah.
to every person, because it's so tough when you lose your roots and then again to find those
Yeah.
roots. That's a very tedious
Yes.
process. Please don't do that.
It is.
I've struggled like day in and out. I had fights within myself. I started thinking myself that, am I having two personalities? Am I having three personalities? One which would be in a networking event where I had to be very decked up and look like and act like an Australian. Then in university, I had to be student and just carry that whole sort of Australian aspect or Australian curiousness and the way of the Australian spirit, the way of asking questions. I have that much, that burden in myself. And then when I was out doing social activities, I just had to involve myself in the activities which other Australians are doing. No, you don't have to do any of these things if you are not comfortable with that. Not even once.
True.
It doesn't have to do
Yeah.
anything. But at the same time, yes, you are in new culture, you are in new environment. You sometimes have to try out new things. Myself,
Yes. Yeah.
I myself call myself a experienced gatherer. And why I say this is I always try to add new experiences to my life. Doesn't matter if the person belongs to which nationality. If I like that personality, I will give my 100% to just keep that person as my friend. I would say with
Yeah.
this networking aspect, which in the later aspect, I'll be just highlight a bit of importance about networking. This networking has allowed me to meet one of my best mates, and I would say my Australian mother here. She, like, when I met her, she has given me a warmth like, a mother away from me. So I've found her just through networking, and I have to
Yeah.
say to some of those things which I didn't used to do back in my own country. I had to explore. I just have to. She never forced me to do anything. It's just I
Yeah.
allowed myself just to ask, why is she doing what is she doing? That's it. If
Yeah.
you are very uncomfortable, just tell them that
Yeah.
this would be having alcohol is just against my ideologies. So sorry, I won't be having that. But at the same time, I would love to have lemon lime bitters, which is Australian national drink. So yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
which is the drink I always sometimes love to have during networking events, so that I always maintain that level of curiousness even after two, three drinks. So yeah, and just
Yeah.
have what you like. Because people in Australia, Australian citizens, and who have been living here, they never judges you what type of drink you are holding. So there is no such
No.
shame that you have to hold a wine or red wine. If you are living in Adelaide, even if you haven't tried red wine, it's absolutely fine. It's not in your taste. And
Yeah.
one of some of the great PhD professors from our uni happened to explain to me once that, Anish, you know what? It makes me a bit of give me a bit of laugh sometimes. It's that in some of the research, it's not, I haven't seen myself, it's just coming straight. He said, and I quote, that some toxins which some what do you say some nutritional aspects, those things which lets wine easily digest in your body is not are not available in some of the Asian countries, some of the Asian people. That's also one of the reason that they don't
Because they're not used to
enjoy
it.
wine, and it takes a lot of time for them
Yeah.
to even to adjust to the taste. So there is no
Yeah.
discomfort in saying that it doesn't suit me. It won't take your pride away.
Yeah.
Just be yourself,
Yeah.
be as you as possible. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a very good point. Actually, very good points. And I think what's really important to note as well, I was actually doing a bit of research about this kind of question on Reddit.
Right.
Reddit. But I wanted to know what people on Reddit had thought, and I just searched about how immigrants can integrate into Australian culture. And the most common thing that people said, like this was Ask an Australian thread or something, was that understand English enough to have a conversation. But one thing that I noticed a lot that I really agree with, and I think it's great, is that the great thing about Australia is that in the Australian values, there is the freedom of religion, freedom of choice, freedom of no religion.
Absolutely.
However, what people said was that don't push your beliefs onto other people. So if you are a vegetarian
Yes.
and you don't eat non-veg, you don't go to networking events and start telling everyone to stop eating meat, for example. Or if you are of a certain religion, you don't push your religious beliefs
Who
onto
does?
others, because the value, the joy of Australia is that you have the freedom of choice to choose to follow a religion or no religion. So I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind, is that you can have the choice to eat what you want, to follow whatever religion you want, to do all those things, to drink alcohol, to not drink alcohol, as long as you don't push your own beliefs onto other people.
Correct.
And I think that's something that actually came up quite a lot in that thread, and I think that's really something to keep in mind. And I'm really glad that you brought this up, that you don't have to do those things if they make you uncomfortable, but if you want to try, great. Try them out. Make a decision for yourself whether it's something you do or don't want to do.
Yeah.
But you don't have to push your beliefs onto other people, because that's where people get offended.
Correct. And just it leads you to that endless cycle where you just tend to make it a habit And unconsciously, these are those habits which are coming into your lifestyle being unconscious, because
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
you have made it as you have included them in your lifestyle, and you will tend to do wherever you
Yeah.
go, and you will carry that in your personality. So just,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
would say that the moment you will try to maintain your culture, your beliefs as intact as possible during the whole university tenure, the more clearer you will be in answering the question, which is the first question, interview question in all interviews: tell me about yourself. Because that
Yeah.
question is giving you an opportunity to actually tell who you are. And
Yeah.
comparison, when we
Yeah.
come to the comparison when Australia and India, I have given interviews in both countries now, and I can exactly, I'm in a state to tell that in India, nobody is giving, highlighting any importance to what you have done apart from the job which you are, will be going to do. No one will be going to give that
Yeah.
much of importance to even your personality. None. Very less.
Yeah.
The time is coming that they are highlighting these things in some of the companies, but till the time when I was used
Yeah.
to be there, no one was giving importance. But once you step
Yeah.
down to Australia, it's just you, and you can add
Yeah.
whenever, the moment you understand this term, you just take it in your personality, and it's all your
Yeah.
personality which that will
Yeah.
take you to places here. If you can ask right
True.
questions,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Look, this is something I kind of struggled with in reverse because as India is a very culturally rich country, and um, it was a bit of a balancing act for me coming here, learning how to adapt to a culturally rich country while not forgetting about who I am as a person.
Correct.
Also, the fact that my husband is Hindu and I'm Christian. So we have that kind of
Differences of,
area to
yeah,
navigate the difference in religions.
correct.
Yeah. But the thing that I'm really lucky with is that my husband and his family are completely open to understanding and learning about my religion and my holidays and my festivals. As an example, last year, Christmas, I was in Australia. My husband and his family celebrated Christmas and I wasn't even here. Just because they know that's my holiday and I celebrate it. My husband set up the Christmas tree, decorated the house. He invited his family for dinner.
Wow.
He cooked them dinner. They wished me Merry Christmas.
Wow,
So,
that's so
and
wonderful.
I did something similar with Diwali.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I was in Australia for Diwali. I went to a Diwali event at Brisbane City
Oh, nice.
that was put on by the council.
Right.
I wore an Indian suit into
Oh,
Brisbane City, caught the bus, everything.
wow.
So I think it's really beautiful that we respect each other enough to do those things. My parents wish my in-laws happy Diwali when they know festivals are on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for me coming here, I had to find ways of embracing the local culture while not forgetting my
Your own
cultural
roots. Yes.
identity, even though people think Australia has no culture. But exactly. And so I really appreciate what you were saying about doing it in Australia. And I think one thing that I can sort of stress being an Australian is that what you said is completely correct. Again, that you don't have to force yourself to do things that make you uncomfortable. But if people can see that you're having a go, that's a really common phrase in
Yes.
Australia, just having a go,
Trying.
trying new
Absolutely.
things, and not forcing your beliefs on other people, but you are trying your best to integrate in other ways. That's all people really care about. They just want to see you integrating.
That's it. And honestly, when you said a great point that a lot of people have said me, and whenever there's a sometimes discussion about Australia, people say that there is no culture. And have always disagreed with that fact, because I have been reading about Australia.
Yeah.
I happened to read a book about Australia, which was Unlucky Country by Donald Horn, which just
Okay.
tells about the Australian spirit and how lucky Australia as a country has been with
Exactly.
having whole mines and
Yeah.
so many resources, gold. You name a sort of metal or a rare earth metal which is not in a periodic table. Just bring a periodic table and you can mark those elements which are not in Australia. Probably every element you can find in Australia. It's that having that much of luck in its own land. And it's the land which Australia praise about it and why they respect
Yeah.
about their land. So people have the question when they are coming from airport, it mentions in the declaration that you need to declare if you have been to a national park where you have carried your shoes and carried that amount of soil
True.
in your shoe. And so
Because I don't want cross
they can
contamination.
cross contamination. So in this way, they are showing respect for their land. And we need to understand when a person, when a country is showing respect to their land, and you are, as a guest, trying to visit their land, as an Indian person, I would say, because I know about Indian culture, we always have respected wherever we visit to a guest house or a relative house.
Yeah.
We do the way they do.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to say
Yeah.
that whenever you come across such things, don't try to defame Australian culture just by saying that there will be some things which you won't understand straight away. And when you don't understand some things, don't label it as right or wrong. Don't label it
Exactly.
anything. Just take it.
Yeah.
Take
Just
it.
understand that it's something that you might not understand, but it's
That's
just,
it.
you just have to learn to understand
Just
it. It's the same
exactly.
here for me. Like, I definitely have come across things that I don't really understand. I will say though, in the beginning, I did sort of have that stuck in Australian mindset where I would be like, well, in Australia, it's better.
Yeah,
Or it's,
exactly.
in Australia, we
We
do
are
this.
humans. We will
And
do that.
I had
Yeah.
to separate that.
Yeah.
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 But I knew that I would not be able to fully commit myself to my new life in this new country if I was holding on to these comparisons. So you have to learn how to let go of the comparisons and appreciate the beauty of the place that you're in.
Absolutely. Amazing. Wonderful point. Thanks, Amanda, for bringing that. It's just letting that thing go, not holding where you come from, not just
Yeah.
holding your beliefs so strongly that they just
Yes,
tries to stop you
exactly.
from entering into a new world, entering into a new foreign
Exactly.
conditions. Amanda, through this, when I was in uni, the first part-time job, it was so hard, and this will be very beneficial for any upcoming students as well. It was 3 months. 3 months had gone, and it was month of September, and I came in July, and I had done my assignments, and we get a bit of mid-semester break, right? So 10 days off.
Yeah.
And I got so much time by myself because now no assignment was there, nothing was there. I just don't know what to do. What should I do with my time? I was suddenly I became empty, and I'm like, are you serious? How? And I was feeling there is no friend, nothing. I just made one or two sort of acquaintances from the uni, which were Indians, and sharing that same sort of language and aspect which we understand. And
Yeah.
I just called her and I just asked her that I don't know, I don't have a job, and she was also not having a job. That's why I called her, because she was in the same situation as me. And I'm like, well, what should I do? I can remember that face of myself, clueless, completely clueless, in a state of shock, being dragged. It's like you have taken newborns from a nest of a magpie. It just felt like that. And you're like,
Yeah.
What's happening? Where am I? And I was just asking her that, are you feeling the same? And she's like, I don't want to say yes at this moment, but I cannot even stop myself. So yes, I'm feeling the same. And that having another person in the same boat in the middle of ocean will at least calm you down a bit. So finding your
yes.
tribe is absolutely one
Yeah.
of the most important thing as you during your initial time as international student. And how this thing can be, and it doesn't, sometimes if a person doesn't want to make new friends immediately, how this thing can be avoided is get yourself a volunteering or whatever it is, get involved yourself as soon as you come to this place. because that will fill your time.
Yeah.
You just need to avoid these negative
Yes,
thoughts
true.
in your mind, which are making you going insane.
Yeah.
I was like, I
Yeah.
cannot sit
True.
inside. I had to go out. I started doing hiking or
Yeah.
whatever came to my mind, and whatever I'm comfortable with, I'll
Yeah.
just go there. And I happened to started doing a bit of networking with my own housemates where I was staying in the accommodation.
Yeah.
And that person was working in National Wine Center. And so National Wine Center was completely new thing for me. I need to serve drinks. So coming from Decathlon, I had already touched the bottomest. I have already lost my pride of coming from that Indian religion, which Indian country, like
Yeah.
the continent. And I was thinking that I won't be doing these sort of jobs. I shouldn't be doing this and that. No, I'm like, how, just tell me what to do, how to do. And I luckily I got a job through his reference. And when I started, my first day was serving drinks in a Greek wedding. And if you are
Oh God.
yes. Now,
I haven't been to a Greek wedding, but I'm Italian, so Italian weddings are just as wild.
yes, thank you. Now, if any Punjabis would be hearing this, then they think that the capacity the way which they drink in their own weddings is the maximum. I'm like, you are completely wrong. You haven't even
You
saw.
haven't seen Europeans drink yet.
Exactly. I'm like, that was my first shift. So,
Yes.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? And the whole atmosphere was so fast paced. You're pouring drinks, you're just taking them. And then what if someone asks about what drink is that? What wine is that? What type of wine? Which location is from that? I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
You want me to remember the location? I'm like, I couldn't able to speak
Yeah.
for the first time. And one of the
Yeah.
another teammate who was there, he saw the way I was getting completely blank. He came to me and he explained
Yeah.
which region it's from and everything.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the only
right.
thing I happened to say to that customer is, this is my first shift. Sorry for the inconvenience. That's it. And I left the table.
Well, look, honestly, the thing that's funny about that is that I've worked in customer service. I mean, I still technically am in a customer service role, but customer service is my thing.
Yeah.
And whenever I would train people or on my first day of any job, whether it was when I was doing hospitality work, call centers, I would always tell someone if it was my first day or if I was in training. There's no shame in admitting that it's your first day.
Absolutely.
The fact that you've said that, I think that's really great. A lot of people get a bit scared to say that, but there's absolutely no shame in admitting that you don't know the answer to
Exactly.
something, which again is a cultural difference because
Absolutely.
Indians don't like admitting when they
Exactly,
don't know
yeah.
the answer to something. So they will lie and tell you what they think you want to hear,
Absolutely.
or they will ignore you.
Exactly. And they will ignore you like they have never even met you. It's just like yes or no.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just now.
And it's worse on the phone. They will just hang up on you.
Exactly. And now that's what I call being rude. It's not in Indian culture.
Yes, exactly.
It's not what is being taught
Yes.
to in us in schools. No. Even in our schools, the teachers have been saying, have you understood? Have you understood? Have you understood? And we are like, no, because others are not saying, why should I say? The
Yeah.
feeling of being the first one has kept India always back in so many aspects. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to say that, but
Yes.
this is one of the core
It's an ego
trait
thing.
that, yeah, absolutely. That trait which has been developed just by seeing others in the room. You can be different.
Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
different.
That kind of the group collective.
Yeah, it's fine. Sometimes you don't feel comfortable itself,
Yeah.
but just even if
Yeah.
sometimes I've seen people not coming out with their beautiful ideas, which they must be having just by the fear of being the first one.
Yeah.
Why? Because
Yeah. For sure.
I was
Yeah.
I was
And it
also the
gets
one.
easier as you go along.
I was also one of them, so I'm not
Yeah, me
praising
too.
myself. So yeah, so it was a journey. It took me a lot of time. Where I'm now
Yeah.
today, at least I
For sure.
can say that yes, I am
Yeah.
not scared today. At least So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll finish up here, Anish. How can people contact you if they want to get in touch? I know that you're very active on LinkedIn since 2012.
Yes, so
So is that the best way?
absolutely. Just LinkedIn, just message me, whatever
Perfect.
it is, and I'll get back to you. So yeah, just LinkedIn.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. I'll put the details in the episode description anyway. So you
Definitely.
can, I can just get that off your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, yes, all good. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
today's
you.
conversation and for joining me today. It's been so great to chat and to hear your perspectives, which are opposite to mine, and knowing that we're practically neighbors.
Exactly.
here.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But yeah, it's good to know. It's
I just say Chandigarh very generally, which I think you do as well, but it's just easier to say Chandigarh
exactly,
as a
yeah,
general
just to give
location.
that reference.
Also safety.
Exactly. Yes, yes. I agree. I agree. But it's a bit safer in Panchkula. So yeah, you guys can think of,
For sure,
future
for
move
sure.
in
I
Panchkula.
agree.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah.
But yeah,
All right. Well, thank you again for the amazing conversation.
thank you so much for having me and just giving this beautiful opportunity to share my story. And I just loved the points which you have mentioned. And please feel free to reach out, not just me, on LinkedIn to everyone whom you feel can help you in any way. And LinkedIn is one of the biggest advantage this world is having now. So just use it.
Yeah, true.
That's it. Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you.
Great tips. Thanks.